Don't you know who I am? I'm the Juggernaut, bitch!
What if this vase is cursed, okay?
Back off, bitch. I ain't leaving until I get that vase.
If this vase has a curse on it, you do not want to touch it.
Stop tampering with the spell.
Oh my god. My Aunt May should really
Stop talking.
Are you not entertained?
No, let's show off.
Unless what they're showing off is dope as fuck.
Fuck.
Let's talk.
There was a firefight! No. Cows, Han, Solo, effect! Someday!
What are you doing?
Dance off, bro. Me and you.
It's phase time, bitches.
It's Vase time, bitches. Welcome to the Kerfuffle. If you like that opening video, you can watch. I just heard an echo of myself. I think that was coming through David's headphones.
Hang on a minute. Hang on.
Okay, all right.
I'm muting.
But I was going to say, if you wanted to watch the full music video, it's not going to be exactly the same because I mix it up each time, form a new intro, but you can watch it. It's called Be What You Want to Be or the Kerfuffle. But if you click on the Be What You Want to Be one, that's in the music videos and mashups area. That'll also get you over to Geek News Now. They're all over on Geek News Now. Two of my guests today are from the wonderful Geek News Now. I got Debbie right below me, David below him below her at the moment.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. Just getting through this, all right? So if you go to that, you'll be basically on Geek News Now already if you go to the music videos. And you can watch a bunch more of my music videos. I know you want to do that. We also have a very special guest here today, and that he is now below me, is Black Angus Reviews, also clearly known as the Beefy American. Welcome.
Yeah, man, thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it. Good to hang out with you. Lined up perfect with my weekend because I do 2 on 2 off. So
awesome. Glad you could make it. I saw you had your Thursday night show. I was there for a little bit of that. And
oh yeah, that was crap at the like I don't know if you saw, but yeah, we had this whole like feedback problem between me and Rookie where it's like if you hear me say yes, and I'm like yes, and then it's like here's 10 seconds later. So I'm like, you know what, I'm not figuring this out. We're done. Like
I didn't see that part. I saw another part where you dropped out. I was talking to Rookie about Spiderman, so which we're going to be talking about tonight as well. But I also had Rookie on last week, and I noticed he was wearing a Meth Gator t-shirt. Is that still something you're working on?
Yeah, it's just life and everything. So I got to raise at work, and I'm doing a lot of overtime like always.
And Meth Gator, for those who don't know, is like a comic idea that he's working on, which the title is intriguing, there. Meth Gator.
No, it's something I gotta I want to save up at least a good chunk of the art money, so I actually have something for a campaign, not just like, hey, here's a poster in like 1 page and we'll see it in like 5 years. So I know people, it's like, well, when does that happen? I hear it, from people that know about it at comic stores, but it's like, hey, I'm doing the long haul to get this done. So I'll let you know.
So what do you got going on right now on your channel? Let people know.
Oh man, with work, I'm so tired because it's like 100 degrees outside plus like hotter. in the factory. So just the Thursday streams. That's about all I can swing. Really out of the loop with a lot of YouTube stuff. I haven't even watched Geek Culture Explained or Comics Explained breaking down recent stuff with MCU, with Spider-Man and everything. So normally I'm on top of all those little details, those nuggets that I haven't read, and pretty much behind. I just saw the trailer. I'm like, some cool things, but it feels like a Doctor Strange movie, not like a Spider-Man movie. So
absolutely. Well, we're going to talk about that in just a second. But yeah, so we've got Black Angus reviews with him. He's got a bunch of other videos on his channel as well. He's done a bunch of different review stuff, and you can catch him every Thursday night on his show over there. And in the description is where you can find a link to his page, and that's Black Angus Reviews. Debbie and David, do you want to introduce yourselves, say anything about what you guys do? Debbie, you can go first.
I'm Debbie. I work with Geek News Now, mostly social media stuff. I also co-host with Chris on MCU Mondays. That's also part of Geek News Now. And other than that, I just work and come home and collapse.
that's how I feel.
Yeah, that's a common theme. And when we're not immediately collapsing, maybe we take some time to do a live stream and then collapse after that. David?
Well, my name's David. I am the head of the Literary Legion for Geek News Now, GNN. All the articles you find over at geeknewsnow.net, those are all our talented writers. We've got a great staff of writers, put out some amazing content. I also am a frequent guest on Marvel Mondays on Geek News Now. I am also doing the GNN Weekly Roundup too. So my face is out there too. That's not a live stream, but that's a kind of a little news story just to catch up in the week of Geek. So
that's basically like what has been happening over on Geek News. Now, just a quick couple-minute catch you up.
That's right.
Because, that's what people like is immediacy. And
quick and to the point.
So to get to the point, Spider-Man Madness. That's the first thing we're going to talk about because we've all been waiting for the trailer. The trailer dropped to a ridiculous amount of views. It got more views. It broke the record for most watched thing. It beat out Endgame. So, you've had some of the people that like to get out and go insane are saying that this is going to be a bigger movie than Endgame. Financially, just bigger, hype-wise, everything like that because of the trailer. What do you guys think about that statement? Black Angus, do you think this is going to be bigger than Endgame?
I mean, you got the other Spider-Man verse stuff with Maguire's Spider-Man and a couple, or at least Electro from
Andrew Garfield's.
Yeah. So there's going to be, different factions of Spider-Man that are going to be interested, but I don't know, this could be a misdirect, and you're getting a lot of it from the trailer of Doctor Strange. Is really not that much in it, but I really think he will be. And I don't know. I think it's becoming a big mess. I really liked Loki. I thought Black Widow was all right. Probably won't ever watch it again, unless I do a breakdown or something. But I don't know. Yeah. I'm just about Black Widow. There's nuggets that are cool, but I'm just I'm getting burned out. It's especially this feels like it's oh, let's do more and more and more and more and more. It's and then you watch Suicide Squad, or you watch Joker, or watch Logan, or just something stripped down. Even the Dark Knight trilogy was pretty well contained, and
exactly.
I think we need to dial it back. When you watch the Maguire Spider-Man, the reason they're so good is because you rip all the Spider-Man and villain stuff out, and you just have a human story. And I think this feels like Squirrel. This feels like the ADD Twitter scrolling, Facebook scrolling, just like TikTok, boom, 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 boom.
What are they talking about? Throw it in. Throw it in the pot. Throw it in the pot.
It's just Holland Spider-Man has got good stuff, especially the first movie he did, but it's just so sporadic. It's so they just got to keep hitting you with all these little things all the time, and so just letting it settle and let you take in a solid solo story. So that's what's kind of just irritating. It's every movie doesn't need to be an ensemble of all these characters intertwined. It's like just let people live on their own. Like I feel like Holland Spider-Man's never just been his own guy. You never seen him just do his own thing. He sort of in Vulture with the first one, but still you got Iron Man wrapped into it in the bigger context. Like I'm trying to be an Avenger, you know, so it's never just him like I'm protecting New York. And I think it's gonna like it might make a good amount of money, but was it come out next year? But I don't know.
End of this year,
December, yeah.
Oh, it's coming out in December. Wow.
Oh yeah, that's why people were so hyped about the trailer. That's one reason everyone was so pouncing on it to see it, was because people have been expecting it for months. That's actually on MCU Mondays. We talk about the new rumors that's coming out. The new rumors that's coming out, and I think really the only reason it actually did come out is because it got leaked.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the biggest thing to take away is that you've had 2 MCU films front loading, overshadowing Shang-Chi, what comes out next week or the week after.
It's September 3rd, so
they clearly have like no real faith in the box office of this film, and to push these other 2 movies. Sure, you got the leaks, but that's kind of my sentiment. Is like I'll see it. I'll probably enjoy at least parts, but like I don't like the world they've built around Holland, and yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of lackluster about it.
I definitely
not even sexy Aunt May.
No, I'm not a Tomei fan.
You know, Aunt May. That's the first thing everybody thinks of is sex symbol.
I think the best she's done was in The Wrestler.
I gotta even remember what she did.
She's like the love interest with Mickey Rourke.
Yeah, I think I need to rewatch that movie because it's escaping me entirely.
I only liked her in Christmas Vacation. Wasn't she the daughter in Christmas Vacation?
I don't know. I'm not like a
no.
fan of Marissa Tomei. I don't think so. He was in my cousin Vinny.
My cousin Vinny. Maybe that's
that was the big one for her.
Oh, was that her? I like her in that. Okay, interesting. I didn't know that was her. I like my cousin Vinny though. Anyway, Spider-Man. No, but with the MCU stuff, I know what you were talking about when you were like, they're not being very self-contained anymore. Even with like WandaVision and Loki, half the time they're setting up questions, and by the end of the show, some of those questions are answered. But usually in the ending, they just present more questions to you, and so you're left with all these questions, and it's like you didn't really complete a story there.
Yeah,
you kind of introduce some things.
Just to add to that, yeah, I feel like MCU is getting too big for its britches. I think Suicide Squad, even though it's like lackluster performance, box office, and everything, I think like they're starting to figure it out, and I feel like MCU really is becoming like the consumer memes. You know, where it's just like enjoy product and get excited for next product. You know, it's like it's never just like, oh, that was good, and I can just step out and I'll be content. It's like, oh, you got to come back for more. Hey, like one of the big sells for Shang-Chi is like the end credit, man. You got to see the end credit. It's like, come on. Like,
see a whole movie just for the end credit scene? Like, I don't think so. The movie should be good enough in and of itself, and not just in what it teases about something else, you know? But the Spider-Man movie itself, specifically Spider-Man, I'm cautiously optimistic about it. It is now the worry is like, oh, they're pulling all these different things from past Spider-Man stuff. It's like, do you actually have a plan for what you're going to be doing with this stuff? Or is it just like, let's throw this nostalgia and this and hope that overwhelmed by that, people will be cool with it. But it is finally kind of getting that Sinister Six thing going. So there's things to like about it and things to be concerned about. Like, will we be seeing the other Spider-Man in it? There's a lot of people online being like, yes, we definitely will. And I'm like, you, because they're like, look, he's wearing the exact same thing as, Tobey Maguire was in his movie. And it's like, that doesn't prove that he's, but it seems like if they're going to be bringing the villains in, why wouldn't you also take the opportunity to try and do some sort of Spider-Verse thing? It seems kind of like the natural thing to do.
I was going to say, although you've got Doc Ock showing up right there at the end, and he looks at Holland and he says, "Hello, Peter." Like he knows who he is. So you're just going to say we're going to skip over.
Well, we don't know if that's because, like, there have been billboards up everywhere that say Spider-Man is Peter Parker. So maybe he saw one of those on his trip down the highway. Because that's everywhere. Yeah, like I'm just saying. Like,
well, I've also heard that people were saying that the way it was edited, that was actually Toby he was talking to, and I'm just like,
so it's
if
just
he's dressed as
outright
Spider-Man, he's going to assume it's Peter. So why would you even throw? And I'm a big Toby fan. I loved his Spider-Man. I didn't care for Andrew Garfield. Too much of a pretty boy for me to be the geeky nerd. But yeah, I like Tom Holland and Toby, but Toby will always be my favorite. I love those movies, except for the third one. I thought they threw in too many villains.
Well, the third one was a little bit of a mess.
Yeah.
A little
but
bit.
other than that, Toby's my
Yeah,
favorite.
it was a little bit of a mess.
That was a big bit of a mess.
But
That's
yeah,
a hot mess.
everybody is saying, I didn't see it personally, but I'm old, my eyesight's bad, but they were saying they seen Lizard Man and
Sandman and Electro, and
when they say we saw Sandman, there's a big cloud of sand, and when they say they saw Electro, there's a lightning ball, and when they say they saw the Lizard, it's like something that Tom Holland turns to look at that's in the back darkness of a room, which people are like, that must be a lizard, because why? Well, because that's a villain that's been in the past couple of things,
and Holland's already got Vulture, and then the whole thing.
I don't see why that could have been Vulture, by the way.
I also, if you watched, Homecoming, the guy that the Vulture was going to make the deal with had a big scorpion tattoo on his neck.
Yeah,
and so that's like everybody's like, "Oh, it's Scorpion! Oh, it's Scorpion and Vulture." So we've got Scorpion, we got Vulture, we got Sandman, Electro, Doc Ock, Green Goblin.
And which Goblin is it going to be? Yeah, it's like everyone wants it to be Willem Dafoe. What if James Franco shows up? Like,
I don't think that'll happen with his problems.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely, but I would laugh. There's things that, like, outside of the movie, like, for the movie, that would be unfortunate. Outside of the movie, I'd be laughing because of...
I would laugh if it was James Franco comes in as this Pineapple Express character.
Oh, my goodness.
Like, it's a big, oh my God, they got Harry Osborn. It's like, no, it's actually, like, just unrelated.
And if that's what they did with the if they like digitally changed Tom Holland to be to be Tom Holland instead of Tobey Maguire, like if that's what people are saying, it's like, because we know that Marvel is willing to do that now. This is like, it was released by Sony Entertainment, but they're still working with Tom Holland's thing, so but we know Marvel at least is more than willing to absolutely just completely lie in trailers. The Russos at least were like, we shot this so that we could make people think that that's what's going to happen.
That's why he's talking. That's why Doc Ock was talking to Tobey Maguire in that trailer, and not
that's what I
Tom
was
Holland.
just saying. Yeah, that's what I was just saying. It's like, maybe if they're willing to go that far with it, but.
I actually like what the Russos did. Like, I saw the Infinity War trailer. I saw the movie 4 times, so I loved it. But the trailer was like, "Ooh, Hulk!" Like, "Oh, he's gonna come. That's gonna be cool." And then it's like, "Oh yeah, he's got this whole ED problem allegory with the Hulk, and it's just Ruffalo the whole time." And I thought that was cool because of spoiler culture. Because everyone's like, "Oh, I got the leak and this and that." It's right. Like, "Oh yeah, you can sure leak away. It's not even a real thing." Like, I like
got
that.
him. Yep. It's like, I sometimes, though, I get why they did it. I'm not so mad about that, but it is like, if I'm watching a movie and I saw a shot in the trailer that I really enjoyed and I'm waiting to see it in the movie, and then it never happens in the movie, I'm like, what if I saw the movie for that? I basically kind of have before. It's like, I really, really like that shot where it wasn't in the film. It's like, oh no, that got taken out. And sometimes it's legitimate reshoot reasons, like what happened with Rogue One. But other times, and I'm not saying that like Wakanda scene from that, the Infinity War trailer was not one of those cases where I was like going to see it. I was going to go see that regardless of anything. Not a single shot from the trailer could have been in the movie, and I still would have seen that. But it's just one of those things where it's like, why would you tease me with potentially getting how that connects into the greater story and then like not even have it at all? Ugh. But
my only worry with the Spider-Man movie is that practically everybody has hyped it up so much with all 3 Spider-Men being in it. Mm-hmm. So if they're not, there's going to be such a backlash. I can see and hear the trolls now. Why did you do this? You know, it's just like, quit hyping up a movie so so much. I mean, you can have your fan theories, but don't take it to such an extreme that you are utterly disappointed when you actually see the movie.
Well, you can. Fan theories are fine. Just don't get so invested in them that
I mean, I'm still waiting on Mephisto, so
Oh yeah, I keep seeing Mephisto confirmed. Like
he was in the trailer.
Devil.
Did you see him? He was in the trailer. He was on a poster.
Well, other people are saying that because Doctor Strange lit that fire without his hand glowing like it usually does when he did magic, that's proof that that's Mephisto. And yes, the poster with Tom Holland with the devil horns drawn, people are like, that's Mephisto confirmed. And someone else is like, no, you idiot, that's Daredevil. Yeah. And it's like, that's why they didn't show the head of his lawyer.
I don't think it's his lawyer. I think because there's like a or some sort of law enforcement cup right there. I think that's just one of the interrogating people.
That's what people do now. Like as soon as that trailer came out, that's the thing. It's like, Debbie, you were talking about people hyping it before the trailer even came out. As soon as the trailer came out, it was, that's not Doctor Strange. Mephisto, Matt Murdock, Electro, Lizard. That's Lizard. It's Lizard. And it's like, you don't know if that's Lizard. That's a shape in the darkness. Like, whoa, everyone. Take a
well, I don't think that is Doctor Strange, at least not the variant we know.
And it might not be, but I'm just using that as
like that variant idea.
Every single, anything that could be, people are like, oh my gosh, frothing at the mouth. Like, did you scream? And then there are other people I'm seeing that are like trying to be clever and come up with this stuff, but they don't even know enough about the MCU to be good at it because they're like, whoa, how does Doctor Strange have the Eye of Agamotto? And then I'm sitting here like, because with Thanos crushed it, he said a fake. So how it's not crazy to think that the real one might not be crushed somewhere and he still has it. And like I've seen other theories that pop up. It's like, what if this is happening? It's like, did you watch the trailer? Because they say in the trailer that's not what's happening. Have you watched the last movie? Because they say that people are just like coming up with anything to try and get like attention. Like, what about this? Pay attention to this. It's like that's nothing. That's nonsense. Shut up. Everybody shut up.
Let me give you a reverse theory. It goes against the like, what if Toby's not in it? What if Andrew's not in it? I remember when Spider-Verse came out, Grace had this really cool like little note in her review talking about how each of the like spider people were voice casted by people that could be live action. Now, Haley Steinfeld, is that her name? Plays Spider-Gwen. She's playing the new Hawkeye show or whatever, so probably not gonna like multi cast her, even though Aaron Taylor Johnson is Kraven and he's also Quicksilver in the MCU. But I think what could be an interesting twist with Sony, just to like get a feel, is whether it's the actual voice actor for Miles or someone else, they could slip in Miles with this multiverse thing. That's a guess. And I'm like, watch them do that. Watch them tease that in this movie.
Well, and they kind of teased it in the first Spider-Man movie because wasn't Miles's uncle?
Yeah,
the guy he interrogated at the
Donald Glover.
Donald Glover played his uncle.
Yeah, and it were kind of it wasn't, but that was the character.
Wait, so Glover's supposed to be Prowler?
Yeah, that's kind of what they were setting up there, but I think they were just doing it to have that contingency because they still didn't know what they were doing, what was happening with Spider-Man.
Maybe they just did it as an Easter egg. It may have just been one of those things where it's like, hey, here's somebody just for fun.
Or they just say it after the fact. But yeah. Like they did.
Yeah,
with
like he's
Iron
actually
Man
like
2.
no name baddie, and then it's like,
nothing.
oh yeah, let's give him a real name. Yeah, Prowler.
That's Prowler. So yeah, Spider-Man. The trailer dropped. Everyone's freaking out. We'll see when we get another trailer if that reveals any more of what's going on. But I mean, this definitely, like Angus said, is kind of overshadowing Eternals and Shang-Chi, especially Shang-Chi, but probably more so than Eternals, because Eternals kind of got me interested with the celestial angles and stuff like that. Shang-Chi is just, I'm still pissed about the rings.
Wait, what's the problem with the rings?
Well, they're like armbands now.
But they're still rings. I mean, a ring is just a circle.
I mean, that's fine enough, but it also looks like all they do is shoot lasers or whatever, whereas each of the rings is supposed to have its own unique, like power, influence, remaker, spin, spectral, fire blast, like it's supposed to do different things, not just when I have these rings, I can shoot lasers.
So in the comics, when they wanted to use the rings, did they just like turn one specific ring to do?
I don't even know, because my limit of knowledge is that he has rings that do different things, and they're like on his, and that's basically the extent of. And I thought that was cool, and I was like, I can't wait to see this guy and see how he uses all those different rings. And I see the trailer, just like I shoot them at people.
Oh, you got to think they got to dumb everything down for normies.
And I was thinking maybe that's exactly what's happening. Like they are just introducing these things. Maybe it's that this guy doesn't understand the true power of them. Maybe he's only actually really using one. And when this other guy gets it, he's going to unlock them more. And maybe then that stuff's going to come into play. But as it looks right now, I don't know. They haven't hugely impressed me. And even with that, they're trying to get people in with some side characters. And that's why they had Abomination fighting Wong in a cage match. And they're like, oh,
you don't know that yet.
Yes, you do.
It's Mephisto. It's not Wong.
They're all Skrulls. Secret Invasion. Now, who knows? They could. I mean, with Secret Invasion is coming up, shape shifters and everything. But I do think Multiverse of Madness is going to have the biggest impact. That's one of the reasons I was being slightly forgiving with the open-ended nature of some of their more recent stuff, is because I'm expecting it to kind of like get answered or in a big way with Multiverse of Madness. Now, do I expect them to not tie that into other stuff coming up? No, but I do expect it to like definitely set the stage, because what we've had recently is WandaVision and Loki kind of breaking things, and the snaps kind of like breaking things, causing a bunch of turmoil. We got to see how it's going to be. Like, what's the phase 4 is partially like setting the table for what comes next. So I'm assuming that's going to be a big way accomplished in Multiverse of Madness, especially with the rumors now that the Illuminati are going to be in it, and Reed Richards is going to be in it, and Professor X is going to be in it. And that's how they're partially introducing all that stuff. And they're introducing vampires and werewolves. So that's they get Blade and stuff set up and blah, 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 blah. So if all that is happening in that movie, and it certainly seems like they've even hinted at that, like, again, Angus, you called it. It's like partially a Doctor Strange movie, the Spiderman movie. Yeah, it is. This is setting up the stuff that's going to be happening in his movie. So even in the trailer for this movie, we're getting the setup for the next thing. Craziness. But we're going to move on, because otherwise we'll just get bogged down in MCU talk forever. And we're going to be doing that on Monday anyway. So let's just move along to the next topic. Next topic is on Disney. Wait, that's Marvel's at Disney. No, but it's about the Disney parks and the new Genie app, which is replacing the way that they do their Fast Pass. And kind of like they have, if you've been to Disney in the past like 10 years or so, they've had an app that kind of helps you get reserve stuff, get set up with Fast Passes, take you through the park. It's like a whole all-in-one app, and it's free, and it's really useful. So that's going away, and there's going to be a new app called like Genie or Genie Plus, and people are pissed. like longtime park goers. Let's look real fast just at the. Let's see if we can get that. This is a YouTube video they put up to try and explain it. This is one of them. So we're not going to watch that, but just look at the ratio there. Not even 1,000 likes, 7.5 thousand.
Man.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's
love
a
it.
big ratio right there.
Wait, they have 40 million subscribers?
1.45 million.
Oh, okay. We can barely see the one.
Let's see. And
Still, that view ratio is like, really? Like a big announcement?
This
Maybe
one,
50K?
almost 1,000, 11,000 down. This is the digital overview that they put out for the whole thing. Disney Genie coming this fall to Walt Disney World. And so let's look at some of the comments. So you've renamed the free Fast Pass service to Genie Plus, which is exactly the same thing, and now charge people for it. Fantastic. Just ruined a favorite character by using Genie. Should have been honest and called it Scrooge McDuck service. You're right. I've never had a friend like this. That's because I've never had a friend who constantly asks me for money. Those are the people I stay away from. Oh, let's see. My wife and I have gone to Disney every single year since we've been married. Lower middle class family that has to travel from Illinois. We can't afford it anymore. This is the final straw. Disney has rejected the lower and middle class families. And the reason that they're saying that, and a lot of people are upset, they're saying it's discriminatory against lower class families, is because the way the new Fast Pass system works is it's kind of like you pay for it. If you decide you don't want to wait in line, you just pay for it. And that kind of sets it up. So it used to be you get 3, basically, that you could pick over the day, different rides. You could put those fast, and that was all part of the free app. So that's why also that first person was like, so you've renamed the free Fast Pass service to Genie Plus, exactly the same thing, but now you're charging people for it. So you can see why this ratio is so heavy. That's not good. What do you guys think about this development? Angus, tell me your thoughts.
This might sound crazy, but this reminds me of the OnlyFans thing that I guess they're kind of pulling back from their decision. But you see this with big companies. They build, Disney's more long term, but they've built themselves off the backs of the plebes, and now it seems they're trying to like steer away from that and get more elites in their parks. And I think part of that's like, remember that family fighting like a year or two ago at the parks? They don't want crap like that, and that's like a plebe thing. And I think they're like, well, we'll maybe not make as many people coming to our parks making money that way.
Try and make more money off
but
less people.
They're accounted for with the Disney Plus subscription, with like small purchases like the pop figures, the toys. They're going to make their money off of the low class people, in their view, from the small merchandising in mass. So I think it's like and this is definitely like a Bob Chapek thing, I would say, because he's came from the parks as a leader. So he's all about trying to make money, especially to recoup from the pandemic issue that's really hindered them this last year or two. So I was just talking today. I went in for overtime and was asking the lead on that shift, like, hey, what'd you do for vacation? He's like, oh, this and that. And we're talking about Disney. He's like, yeah, for us to go, my grandkids, it'd be like over $8,000 plus we have to fly there. So we're talking about like dropping $10K to go to a park. Like, this isn't the American dream anymore. And whatever. I mean, you're losing a lot of customers. You're losing a lot of like lifelong people that's gonna, let's save up like a year for this vacation. Now it's like, I gotta save like 3 or 4 years to go to Disney. It's not even worth it,
Drunk 3PO put out the video earlier today on it. That's kind of what brought it to my attention. And he does a park hopper channel as well, because he goes to these parks. And he was mentioning also that like there are other things that aren't going to be there as well. Like there's used to be like a bus service that if you were staying at a Disney resort, and I did this when my friends got married, we stayed in a Disney resort, and then like there are buses that will take you back to your resort from the park. Apparently they're not going to be doing that anymore. And I was just like, what? That seems ridiculous. You're already paying extra for the whole. That's part of the whole resort thing. But it just seems like they're trying to cut costs and make more money off of things that they used to provide.
That's horrible. I mean, we've been to Disney 2 or 3 times. I mean, we went in 2015, 2018. And that was one of the big perks was, okay, we don't have to drive to the park. So we don't have to park at the park. So we don't have to fight traffic when everybody and their dog is trying to leave the park. All we have to do is get on the bus.
Get on the bus back to
and somebody else drives.
And I thought that was part of the extra price that you're paying to like stay at these days. And I don't know, that could be up in the air because Jay was also Drunk 3PO. If you want to check it out, you go to Drunk 3PO's channel. Should be the first video up there. He just made it today. But he was just, mentioning that they hadn't announced all of the prices for all the fast pass things, like some of the most popular rides and some of the most, because it's maybe they were kind of staggering the release of this information to see how people would react. And maybe with these most people, the general public generally just upset, maybe they'll retool this idea a little bit, but
they should. I mean,
this just totally goes against everything that Walt, when he started Walt Disney World Land, whatever. I mean, he wanted a place that everybody could go, all families could go, and now it's just like, I mean, I've only been to Disney in Florida once, and that was back in the mid to late 90s. And they didn't have they didn't have the bracelets and all that. I mean, we stayed in Disney World, and we stayed for a week, and there was 5 of us, and I think it was like $6,000. I mean, but it was for a week, and I think by staying in the resort there, I think we got in an hour earlier before everybody else.
You get the magic hours, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, again, was something else that Drunk 3PO said is not necessarily going to be happening anymore.
Yeah.
Along with the bus thing. And that's just like... And, I mean, some more of the comments. One of the other ones that was here said, this has Bob Chapek written all over it. Nickel and diming customers already. We can charge anything we want, $2,000 a day, $10,000 a day, and people will pay it.
That's what I was just thinking about, except my line was going to be, well, we don't want to cater just to the super rich. We'll have a coupon day or something.
Coupon day.
Yeah, no, I was thinking of that. What was it like for
Jurassic
Park.
For 2 people during the off season at that new Star Wars cruise or whatever? It's like $5,000 for off.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's like
that one there pissed me off because when they first had the idea of doing that, I was pretty pumped because I thought, my kids are grown now, and I thought, well, maybe we're all Star Wars fans, and I thought, well, maybe we could all take a summer vacation down there and do the Star Wars hotel thing. And then when I seen the prices, I was like, holy hell. we have to win the lottery to go.
Yeah,
I looked at it too. When they first announced it, and I told my wife, I'm like, we got to go. We got to stay at this place. And then I looked at the prices. And I was like, well, we got to stay at it maybe for like one night. Can we just stay there for one night?
In a tent.
At least we get the experience for one night, and then we'll go to a different resort later on.
One night, maybe a couple of hours to be able to afford it.
All right, I buy us a couple of servants costumes. We sneak in. Or you do really good cosplay of the code breaker from like The Last Jedi. It's like, I belong here. I didn't break into this room.
Yeah, I work in a factory, so it's like, I do overtime. It's like, man, like how much I have to break my body just to like afford like a car down payment or a house down payment to go to a resort for a couple. Like, this is stupid. Don't waste your money.
Yeah.
Don't make this part of like your hamster wheel to like, let me keep chugging along. Like, if I can go to Disney, like it's not worth it.
Star Wars is supposed to be something nice. It's supposed to be something that like
Uh-oh.
nice, yes,
We're all there.
yeah.
I'm wearing The Office. I'm wearing Dwight. My whole
said
house is
anything.
Star Wars.
But it's supposed to be something that brings you joy, relaxes you, as an escape from. Yeah, it's not supposed to be something that's like, let me kill myself so that maybe I can not even enjoy this because I'm too stressed out about how much money I'm spending. You know, it's not supposed to be that.
Well, and honestly, when we went for the first time in 2015, we took the boys, and we started paying for it in October of 2014. We went in June of 2015. But when we got there in June, everything was paid off. We had all of our meals. They were lined up for us. We didn't have to worry about, okay, where are we going to go eat? We didn't have to worry about, okay, do we need to go eat at McDonald's for lunch because we're going to have an expensive dinner? Everything was taken care of. We didn't even have to worry about pictures or anything. It was all, that was the most relaxing vacation I've ever been on, like ever. Because we didn't have to worry about anything. It was all there. It was all taken care of. I mean, even the credit card was on those Magic Bands. So if you wanted to buy something, you go boop, and you paid for it. You didn't even have to worry about carrying a wallet around.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the articles I read, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was saying that with this Genie app thingy, you practically have to like decide what you're going to eat later on in the evening at 7 o'clock in the morning. You'd have to get up early to get your reservations or pick out where you're going to eat. And I was like, who the hell knows what you want to eat for supper at 7 a.m. in the morning?
Well, so that kind of defeats the thing then, because when we went, it was like 180 days before you're actually there. You have to go ahead and pick where you're going to eat. You have to pick your meals and where you're going to be on every particular day. You know, so you sign up for we went and ate at the Beauty and the Beast castle. We ate it. That was a big one for us. And one year we did the princesses. You go eat dinner with all the princesses and they all wander around and all this other stuff. But I mean that's what made it so good, was that like I said, it was 180 days out. We had picked everything. All of our meals were lined up.
Yeah.
This is on top of what you're talking about, like the special dinners and that. We're talking about your regular Joe Blow restaurants within Disney.
Lame.
From my understanding, I could be wrong, but I was just like, well, that's not right.
Too happy about any aspect of this new thing. So we'll see. That again, they've kind of been staggering information on it for the past week or so, but we'll see. They haven't even released all the final prices for everything. And again, maybe this backlash will make them rethink some things, or maybe again, their accountants, like Angus said, will say, you know what, we'll reach for a higher class.
They're going to see this and be like, oh, look, the vocal minority. They don't care about the feedback. They're just going to, it's just online trolls. You know, we've seen this.
Not when your ratio looks like that.
I really don't think they'll care, because this goes hand in hand with like the narrative with YouTubers in general, feelings about Star Wars, Marvel, whatever. You know, they're just going to lump it into like Yahtzees, alt-right, whatever spin they want to put on it, you know.
Well, they'll just say, you know, this bad press is just coming from those same people. It's just a scapegoat for them to use for anything that ever comes up. But actually, that kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking about right up next, which is Star Wars, specifically Slave One, Boba Fett's iconic ship. And this was actually something when I did my first episode of Kerfuffle. I did that like at the beginning of July, then took like a month and a half break, and then did episode 2. But in episode 1, we were talking. Yeah, I don't know. In episode 1, we were talking about will Slave One's name be changed, because there was the Lego set that was when the whole thing first dropped. Like it was like, hey, you know, look out. They're changing the name of Slave because they're just calling this Lego set Boba Fett Starship, and people are like, it's just for a Lego set. And I myself I haven't put it together yet, but I have a 20th anniversary Slave One Lego set, because for the past 20 years, that's been the trademarked name. And I thought it was maybe just a thing they're doing for Lego. Like, yeah, I think we all saw this coming because they're crazy. But they're like, we'll change the name, or at least we won't use it on Lego packaging because it might trigger some, and if they just did that, even in the show, I had ETEP with Tokian, place to be reviews on. We were saying maybe it's just for like the Lego thing, but even in like the official documentation and like the online, this is Slave One Boba Fett ship, blah, blah, blah. But now in the comic that just came out, they're listing bounty hunters with their ships, and the other bounty hunters have like the names of their ship, but they're like Boba Fett and Fire Spray, which if you're a longtime fan, you're just like losing your mind. It's like, yes, it's the Fire Spray class.
You might as well call
ship. Yeah, it's like, what are you going to call Han Solo's ship now?
The YT 1300?
Oh, look at that Corellian freighter, Han Solo's iconic ship. Like,
or Luke blew up the Death Star with an Incom T-65. What was the name of his ship? What? It's an X-wing.
So they get rid of. So now it's another another possible nail in this coffin of them trying to change the name of the ship, Slave One, which has been for over 20 years at this point.
It's Prisoners with Jobs 1 now.
Yeah, or it's Boba Fett, and that was the other thing. The memes have been coming out. It's like 12 years of Boba Fett's starship instead of 12 years of slave. Like,
oh my god!
Yeah. And it's like, what? Because that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. It's like when you get rid of that name, it's not like you got rid of slavery. It's like, and then you have a meme of Anakin. It's like, I'm not a Boba Fett starship. I'm a person, and my name is Anakin. And it's like, you didn't get rid of slavery by changing. It's like that's not what happened.
So is it Boba Fett starship Leia now?
Boba Fett is exactly. Boba Fett is not a good guy. Like throughout all of Star Wars, even up until now, I mean, he just helped out in The Mandalorian, but for all the other time, he was the one hunting Han Solo, who turned him into Jabba, who fought them. Is a bad guy. Can bad guys not even have a ship that's like a bad thing, named after a bad thing? It's like,
I gotta say, I don't think Boba Fett actually is a bad guy. I mean, it's a profession. He's
neutral,
a bounty hunter.
Yeah.
He's
there's a bounty on Han's head. So let me.
But he's not like a virtue. You don't think of him as like one of the virtuous.
Yeah,
like,
no,
Luke
I get
Skywalker.
that. It's like I see him as
He's
just
not
a great character.
Yeah.
But no, like honestly, this is stuff I talked about. Like when I started my channel, I did this video about why like film matters. And the point was about Solo, but I did this whole like build into with film history, and it's like the first film school was Soviet Russia, and guess who used everything that they did with montage and like and people say like, oh, films ain't that deep, blah blah blah. And it's
they are.
Oh
they
man, like even kids movies can have some little messaging. And guess who used what the Russians started? The Yazis, Goebbels, and all of them. They perfected for the German mass what Russia started with film to incite the masses in the cause. And so it's like film can have a big thing. And so when you look at Star Wars, there's all this obvious kind of Yahtzee allegory and stuff with the symbolism and everything. The Empire is like stagnant, only male, no aliens, they're white males and all that, faceless. And then with Force Awakens and stuff, they like add diversity to the bad guys. Like you have a new empire in the First Order. And it's like, oh, let's have like a Latina and a black girl and this and that. There's a black guy in the First Order. And it's like, they don't even get it. And this is the stepping stones into like this stuff with the PC. Oh, that could be offensive. We called it, and it's like, it's not going to stop. It's going to get worse and worse. So you don't even recognize the universe George made. And so, like, that's why it's a big thing. I know this one guy did a TikTok from his channel, Darth Chaco. He's like, oh, it's like, it's the restaurant's under new management. They still sell the old stuff you like. It's like, no, they added like soy to it. They've changed the formula of the old stuff because of the context of this linear story. And
use the restaurant like allegory. It's like you'd still go back to the restaurant even if it's changed manager. It's like, not if the new manager instituted a bunch of stuff that makes it shitty food.
Yeah,
I'm not going to keep going there.
Every time we get a win with Mandalorian or something, it's crap like this that they act like, oh, it's overblown, whoop-de-doo, like it's not that big. It's like, this is where they start, trying to like have diversity in like the bad guys in a very kind of simplistic symbolism series where it's like there'll be subversion with like someone like Count Dooku or Vader, where they're kind of gray, or Qui-Gon, but generally it's a very black and white kind of morality tale. Ebbs and flows, the good guys and the bad guys in power at the time, and people laugh this off now 10 years later and be like, oh god, I wish I was on board with y'all then.
I don't know if you guys remember the backlash that George got when Phantom Menace came out, because some of the characters had, I guess you would call stereotypical, like the
Trade Federation.
Yeah, they had like
called that
Asian or Chinese accents, and I don't know. I don't. When I go to a movie, I go to enjoy. I don't sit there and.
I wasn't. When I was watching that as a kid, I didn't think to myself, Asians. I thought to myself, they're aliens with accents. They sound different than the regular characters because they're used to speaking blibbity blobbity, and it's not so you got to take that kind of into consideration. Now, there are other people that say like, oh, Watto, that's offensive to Jewish people. They gave him a huge nose and he's cheap. Da da da. It's like,
wasn't it an Arabic guy that voiced him?
Like, yeah, if you want to start like taking things and putting it on every little thing, you're going to be able to do that to everything. What, Chewbacca? That's offensive to dogs. He's covered in hair and they always treat it bad. Well, they don't respect his opinion. That's offensive to furries.
If you think about it, and not if you think about it, obviously, big Lego collector. I've been collecting since 1999, so I've been on the Star Wars Legos since the beginning for 21, 22 years now. In 2015, they released a Jabba's Palace playset, and it looked a lot like Jabba's Palace, and you could buy the Rancor pit separately, and you could set the palace on top of the Rancor pit, and Luke could fall down in the Rancor. It was great. It was amazing. It was so cool, but it got a lot of people pissed off, and they actually ended up. I think they have.
Why did it get them pissed off?
Because Jabba's palace looks like a Muslim mosque, and that upset Muslim people because Jabba's a bad guy, and if the mosque looks like a bad guy's place, then you're saying that the mosque is. I mean, you can look it up. There was a big stink raised about it.
Yeah,
and this was
idiotic.
2014, 2015, I think. So it's been a few years.
Go ahead. Well, I was just wondering when are they going to change or maybe they already have and I missed it, but when are they going to change the Slave Leia?
Well, they don't make her anymore. Like the black.
Really, they don't make her anymore.
Yeah, they like banned it.
I will say that when Carrie Fisher was still alive, she had the absolute best response because this was already being brought up. There was some dude that was like, "What am I supposed to tell my daughter about Slave Leia and that costume that you're in?" And Carrie Fisher goes, "You can tell her that a giant evil slug made me do it, and I killed him." And it's like, whoa, yeah, boom.
That's empowerment. That's not slavery.
Like, I always have called that scene. I was like, people are angry about how she looks at that. I was like, the bad guy put her in that. Then she used the chains of her bondage to strangle him to death. If that's not a metaphor for a powerful woman, I don't know what to do for you. I don't know how to help you.
Yeah, they need to quit. I
gotta say, Boba, this is one beauty of a ship. Not crazy about the name, though.
See, that's funny shit.
That's funny because it's funny because it's outside the universe. It's like making a joke that we understand because we actually live here, but you wouldn't expect it of the people in Star Wars. And that's why when they do stuff like this, and they're like, we're changing the name, it's like, well, in universe, what? We're just going to never call it that again? What about for the past, like, however long? Yeah,
44 years, 45 years?
And so, again, absolutely. So, Angus, when you're like, some people say it's a small thing, but yeah, how many small things? That's like the start of an avalanche. The hobbits woke the Ents, and that destroyed, Saruman. So you gotta leave. The smallest things can make a difference.
Yeah, they. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, like I can't remember what it was, but like in the science community, they're like renaming bugs because they have offensive names. and stuff. And it's like, so this is already spilling into
and that's
like
the
things that we sound crazy for in movie talk, where we're like, oh, those nerds are triggered about like Ghostbusters or Star Wars or whatever. Like, what do you do? Watch CNN now, watch the news, look at like how real world stuff is being spun. Science is scared of triggering people because of like how many hundreds of years they've been calling a bug a certain thing. That's offensive. We got change.
Yeah, it was the gypsy moth.
I don't even think
what?
I thought gypsy was like
because of the gypsy.
Yeah,
gypsies are a people. I never thought that was.
Yeah, they said we changed it because we thought it might be. And I don't know if gypsies actually complained about it. They probably didn't even know about it. But it's just like, we decided to change it because we thought it might be offensive to those people.
Might have complained about it. And then you also have the people taking like, you see, you observe in society, like people getting taken down. The mob loves to take people down. So you see this happening and you're like, do we have anything that maybe we should be looking at that we can get ahead of this on? So companies are looking to like change things before they get like taken down over them. So that's that kind of thing. And that's kind of what's happening with Slave One, because nobody was asking for Slave One. There was no turmoil of people going like, you know what, you need to change Star Wars. We draw the line at Slave One all of a sudden. Like that never happened anywhere. They're just trying to get ahead of it. And because also they're the ones pushing that, specific message, the message of tolerance, inclusion, and diversity, as long as you can pay for it, apparently, the new Disney park slogan. If you're rich enough to afford it, good for you. Otherwise, we couldn't care less. And you're always going to have people...
Shut up and take my money!
But that doesn't mean that's what we have to be.
You
I don't have enough money to...
you said all of that, and here's the next one. I'm offended by people being offended. Well, you stop being offended because you're offending.
It's ridiculous.
Space.
Safe space. I need a timeout. My feelings.
Prepare to receive cargo.
Kenner's Slave One comes with frozen Han Solo.
Is Han Solo completely frozen stormtrooper? Yes, Boba Fett.
Action figures each sold separately.
Place them in the prisoner retention unit.
Slave One has a rear loading ramp.
Prepare for takeoff. Check.
Movable cannons and gravity-operated wings that trigger lock.
On to Jabba.
Slave One with frozen Han Solo from Kenner's Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back collection. Action figures each sold separately.
1980, 79, 80, somewhere in there.
Trademarked for like 30 years or so. Since Empire Strikes Back, that was for the official Empire Strikes Back set. So
yeah, it'd be about 41 years or so.
Slave One trademark. But now I get fire spray. Yeah, it's a mess.
Like, I don't get why they couldn't just give them a new ship if that's the case,
Because the Slave One is an awesome ship.
No. But that would have made complete sense
in Star Wars.
I mean, even if they said, okay, we're going to give him a new ship because of the Mandalorian, moving into the Book of Boba Fett, but
they blew up the Razor Crest. They got on Slave One, so you're stuck with it.
Yeah, but Boba was stuck on Tatooine for God only knows how many years. He could have picked up a different ship at some point.
Yeah, that was the other thing, though. In the books, in the Mandalorian, in the Bounty Hunter Wars, which is even before they kind of retconned his character, but pretty much everything in that book still holds up even to his new character because it's just him being a badass bounty hunter. So even in that, he talks about how his helmet is slaved to his ship because that used to be a more common like programming term. You slave something to a remote control, so it's Slave One. He calls it in with his helmet one time to like bust up some people that were trying to ambush him, and so that's like a relationship he has. But he also mentions like, and this is after he gets out of the Sarlacc pit, because even before the prequels came out, they were setting him up to have come out alive from that. So in the Bounty Hunter Wars, he is outside of that. He talks about how he shouldn't have named it Slave One, and when someone asks why, because that gives away the fact that there's more than one of them, and they get on Slave 4. So that the thing about just having another ship, that doesn't necessarily solve the problem either, because like, why do you think he called it Slave One? Because he had other slaves waiting out there for him to get aboard. Doesn't necessarily solve the problem. And also, again, changing the name does nothing to stop slavery. You still have a main character who started out as a slave, so it's not like you can just get rid of this word from Star Wars and act like. That's more offensive to slavery than just having a ship called Slave One. At least then we acknowledge slavery exists. What are you trying to do? Act like it never happened? Shame on you, Disney.
Well,
and not just the main character. You're talking about like the pinnacle character. You're talking about the entire foundation of the entire series of movies, the entire saga.
And they also have a couple of episodes in the Clone Wars where they're on a planet of slaves.
Yep.
Slavery. I mean, the Twi'lek people were slaves. There was a whole thing where the Republic outlawed slavery because there was a planet and they were known as slavers, and they're like, we can't wait for the separatists to win so we can have slaves again. People could accuse them of using the clones as like meat shields and things like that. Is that not a life? And even there's been conflict amongst the Jedi about, are these things really alive within the Force or not, or should we actually feel bad about throwing these thousands of lives into a meat grinder? But that's kind of like the cool thing about Star Wars, like those philosophical questions that it starts bringing up about like light side and the dark side, and are you actually doing the right thing? And
yeah, that's one of the only like real deep things in the sequels that was like, that's a cool twist, because like you just watch the prequels and you're like, man, the Jedi, yay, oh, he's too old, and then you'll see Kylo Ren mentioning it's like, oh, maybe we should go back to like this way instead of you procuring babies for your army. And it like totally put what the Jedi did in perspective. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like,
but I never even liked people who get even that perspective on the Jedi. They're like, the Jedi were evil because they were kidnapping beings. Let me lay it out for you. First of all, it's a giant galaxy out there. Not everyone is that well off. Okay, there's plenty of poor people. Poor people could give birth to Force. Even rich people, by the way. Count Dooku was from a rich family. He still went on to be a Jedi. Why is that? Because for the most part, you're going to get more respect, more renown, more access, more everything as a Jedi than anything else. If you think of it in like terms of medieval times, you have like a king, which would be like the leader of the Republic. Then you'd have the Senate. That's more like Roman times or whatever. But then these Jedi Knights are like up in that tier of like the Jedi Masters are even on almost the same tier as like the Senate and the Chancellor themselves. And then Jedi Knights, just being a Jedi Knight, you're pretty much above everyone. You're on the level of a galactic leader almost anywhere you go. And you're taken care of. You can pay for anything you need. You have as many Republic credits as you need. You're the protector. It's like a thing that many people would wish for their child to be taken to become a Jedi. And they gave you a choice. They didn't just steal your child. They were like, we can make this kid a Jedi. Most people were like, sweet. And if they didn't want to, then it was usually like, okay, then we just won't train him. And that's why they didn't train him, because the training itself is what can make people so dangerous, to actually be able to harness that thing. So that whole thing about the Jedi being evil, it's kind of misconstrued. And also they were still doing that from the time when they were fighting against thousands of Sith. And so they needed to recruit people, but obviously that ended with Bane and the Rule of Two. So they were still just kind of doing that. But again, they weren't stealing children usually.
No,
but giving them a better opportunity.
I wouldn't think that the Jedi would steal, but you got to think of like someone like Qui-Gon. It's like, who's to say they didn't mind trick people to get their kid because they feel like the Force in them, like, ooh, this would be good for our ranks, And
the idea that like a Jedi, just being a Jedi Knight, doesn't intrinsically make you a good person. You still have to be making the right choices and doing the right things. And
I'm just, I
and there are those that didn't. Yeah,
I think the system of the Jedi is meant to be questioned, but we never really did. We just went along with it because they're the good guys. Of like, not all their practices are like, that's the whole thing about the Jedi, why they fall. It's one thing Rian Johnson got half right when Luke talks about like the prequels with the Jedi and stuff, is that they're kind of like an allegory for like the Knights Templar. The Templar were like a religious order of knights, but then the reason they got like ousted and Friday the 13th became a date and stuff of infamy is because they started getting power to challenge like kings, and that's why they got taken out. And so that's kind of what's at play for the Jedi. They've lost their way. They've become political instead of pure in the Force and stuff. So
that's also
part of why they fell, is they kind of became arrogant, and I don't know. Usually people that can post a thread on Twitter ever like really detailing this usually don't like their Star Wars takes, but I see credence in that.
And also, they were too close to it, and they were being led by Yoda. Yoda, who'd been like teaching Jedi for the past however many 100 years, he was still teaching in that kind of way that they were doing things back then. They didn't grow and change like the dark side grew and changed. And also, so that was the other side of the whole thing with the Jedi, is you actually had the dark side manipulating them. Manipulating them into the war so that more Jedi would fall to the dark side, to those dark side temptations, manipulating them into fighting. And so the Jedi were wearing armor during the beginning of the Clone Wars. By the end of it, Yoda has them take it off because he's afraid that they're becoming too much of warlike people, but he didn't catch on fast enough. He didn't see through the dark side fast enough. So there were other things that were doing it, but yeah. That arrogance, that is another thing, that the Jedi arrogance, Yoda talks about it, a trait seen more and more in Jedi these days, because they think I'm a Jedi, so I'm better than everyone else, or I can do more than and so you get that, and that feeds into dark side stuff.
Well, I just finished reading Survivor's Quest. It's an old Legends book, and
expanded universe.
One of the characters in there, he was talking to Luke and Mara about how his parents were so proud and felt so privileged to give her over to the Jedi because she was strong in the Force. I mean, there was no kidnapping. There was, no nothing. They idolized the Jedi. And so when they came knocking around, your kid, it was an honor. It was a privilege. And they were so proud that their daughter was going to become a Jedi Knight. So I've never heard of any stories in the movies or any of the books where they kidnap kids.
Well, they've mentioned it. The Dathomir witches have said that they've taken kids from them different times. There have been different societies, especially groups where so I know in the Clone Wars there was an episode where Jar Jar Binks and Mace Windu go to this planet where the Force users there didn't like the Jedi because they abduct children. So that was in the Clone Wars. Also in the expanded universe, I know that Luke, when he was following the steps of his nephew Jason, who had gone to the dark side and become Darth Caedus. So Luke is traveling with his son Ben to these Force users that are outside the Jedi Order to learn things. And there were some of them who also had misgivings toward the Jedi. Some of them because they're like, the Jedi are too warlike, which people are like, what? The Jedi are supposed to be against war. It's like, they still fight. These people don't fight at all. And then the whole thing about back in the day of them taking kids, that's also like this legend that goes around, and probably because there are always Sith Lords out there like Palpatine going around and actually abducting kids. But I'm sure there are also, like you say, not every Jedi is going to be pure of heart. Like, being a Jedi doesn't just make you a wholesome, good person. There's nothing to say that, maybe once in a while a Jedi did one of these things in order to get a kid.
Yeah, I think one of the things about
for the greater Jedi's good.
I think one of the things about the Jedi system that can be questioned is like, you're getting them young so you can like culture them right. And so there's a question of like free will, if like you're just isolated in this one system of thought. It's like it's kind of like the whole like Islamic question with feminists, whatever. It's like, oh, it's your choice to wear hijab. It's like, do you really have a choice if like you get like beat or stoned in the streets if you don't wear it? In these countries, it's not really, it's implicit that you do it. And so you think about that with like culture in a system like the Jedi. It's kind of puritanical, or you like, I can't be different,
Right. The excuse for the Jedi was that we need to take them young so we can instill these like emotional safeguards. Was part of it, like being raised with and that's also why Anakin didn't fit in when he got there later, because he wasn't raised in the Jedi temple with their meditation centers and waterfalls and feel the Force. He was a slave who was beaten often and saw that power gets you what you want, and if you have the power to do something, you have the power to like. And he's also, by happenstance, someone who becomes very powerful very quickly. So from that side of it, it's like, we'll see. That's why they were saying he's too old, blah, blah, blah. But it's also, like you say, it does indoctrinate them in the ways of the Jedi and only thinking along those terms for the most part, which is even why Obi-Wan kind of had problems with Qui-Gon Jinn, because Qui-Gon was even a little bit of a maverick, going against the Council's wishes, talking about, like, you know, going against things that all the other Jedi would take for granted. But he's like, be mindful to the living Force, which is what the Jedi really should have been doing more anyway, is not thinking I use the Force but listening to the Force and responding to it. But that's
why Luke's endearing. I'm a dark sider, so it's like none of the Jedi are my favorite. I love the dark side, but Luke is tempted. Like, Luke beats Vader by tapping into darkness.
He does.
He has that free will about him, and he wasn't. I mean, there's some manipulation like Obi-Wan and stuff, like perception, you know, from a certain point of view, that kind of crap. But you know, he's kind of unhindered by like the indoctrination of past generations. Like, he's his own guy that buys into the system of thought, not being acculturated with everything else outside.
They also teach him a little bit differently than they do the other. They don't start him out from birth training him. They let him age, and then they start training him when the Force wills it, essentially. So, I mean, Yoda and Obi-Wan, by that point, are not still doing that. They're not just, when they're training Luke, they're not just doing the things that they did in the old Jedi Order. They're actually training him in new ways. Like, they're not, no one ever says to him, attachment is forbidden. They just counsel him very strongly about his emotions. They're like, your emotions do you credit? They even ask him, trust your feelings, think about your feelings, like, think, you know. And then when he figures out that Leia's his sister, he says, talking to Obi-Wan, he says, Leia's my sister. And Obi-Wan says, your feelings do you credit, but be careful, because they could be made to serve the Emperor. And that's when he gives into his fear and his anger when Vader calls him out. He's like, your sister, who cares about you? I'll just kill you and go get your sister and turn her to the dark side. And then Luke gives in to that fear and anger, quicker in a fight, more easy, more seductive. And he takes out Vader, because that's what the dark side wants. That's what Palpatine wants, is for him to take Vader's place. And so, of course, he beats out Vader. He's younger and more powerful. You know, that's exactly what Palpatine wants. And so he beats him. But then what happens? He cuts off Vader's hand. Vader's sitting there, and then he looks at his own hand. Now, this is why I truly hate The Last Jedi, because they have Yoda hit Luke over the head with a stick and say, failure is the best teacher. And I'm sitting there like, are you kidding me? That was the whole point of The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. In The Empire Strikes Back, he doesn't listen to his teachers. He rushes in, he gets his hand cut off, and it's replaced by a mechanical hand, much like Vader. When he's fighting Vader, failure is the best teacher. He's about to kill him. He's standing over him, ready for the kill. He looks at Vader's cybernetic hand that's been cut off. He looks at his own hand. He thinks of the failure in the cave. He realizes all that means. He didn't understand what it meant to be a Jedi before that moment. But right there, the lesson's come to him. No, I shouldn't be attacking. A Jedi never uses the Force to attack, only for knowledge and defense. I'm going to become like him. That's what the cave meant. I'm going to become like Vader if I make these same mistakes. So his failing to defeat Vader in the Empire, getting his hand cut off, is what helps him realize the lessons that Yoda's been teaching him. Epiphany, okay? That's an epiphany moment. Everything changes for him right there, and he learns what it means to be a Jedi, and that's why he casts aside his lightsaber at that point and says, I'll never turn to the dark side. And that's why Palpatine then says, so be it, Jedi. And like, that is a huge thing. And so in the 2 movies later, they undo all of his progress to make him like this bitter old defeated. And it's like, and have him trying to kill his nephew, which is just not something he would do because that's him giving into force visions, which he learned not to do from Empire Strikes Back, and attacking an innocent, which he for sure knows not to do anyway. It's a family member. He wouldn't do that. He didn't want to kill Vader. People are like, yes, he used the dark side to defeat Vader and fight him, but 3 different times during that fight, he tries to say no and stop fighting him, and then he finally does stop fighting him. So you're telling me after that, he's going to kill his nephew, innocent at this point, in his sleep? I don't buy it. It doesn't make sense.
I'd actually counter. That's one of the things that could have been good if they would have delivered it well, if they would have built into that better.
I can agree with that.
Because think about like Batman and Punisher, you know, like Punisher is like the follow through that like at some point the average person would turn from like this Batman initiative to like, wait, I keep catching the Joker and he gets out. So let me just like, you know, black flag justice.
You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
So with Luke, he's been raised in an era that Vader was number 2 and seen their regime. And then he like feels what Kylo could be. And so he has like this moment of weakness and he thinks about it. And so I think that's totally fine. Because it's like, wait, it's like Joker. It's like if I just kill him, how many people will I save, even if it's someone I love?
But that's the whole point.
But they don't deliver it well at all. Even with
the whole
like
point of Return of the Jedi is that
yeah.
It's not worth killing someone if it ends up corrupting your own soul, because then you're just going to end up becoming that next thing. Yeah. I feel like that's a lesson.
That's why I think like the like plot points, not the delivery of the movie itself, but plot points. If you developed it well, it could have been really good. Like Luke going through that and that weakness and thinking about it, almost doing it, and just like that's why he's like, I'm out. There's no way to win this game of like being a guardian for peace or succumbing to my emotions. Let me and best way to win is to not play.
Well, I could see that's why when the previews came out and I saw this like kind of dejected Luke, I was like, I can't wait to see what led this about, because that's not the Luke that. And so I was interested. I was excited to see like what brought him to this point. And then when I did see what it was, I didn't like it.
But then, too, I mean, something else, too, and he kind of addressed this, too, in The Last Jedi, where he said, because I was Luke Skywalker, I was the legend. The Jedi were the legends. He realized that, yes, you're absolutely right. He saw the Force vision in Empire. He realized his mistake. But then in Jedi, he takes it a step further, and he says, I'm not perfect. I am still, at the end of the day, I'm still a human, for lack of a better word, because you don't know what he is. He's a Tatooinean.
That was his excuse for giving up, was that people thought too much of him, and was like, well, that's not an excuse that Luke would use. It was
it's not an excuse. Like I'm not saying he used it as an excuse. I'm saying he probably looked at it and he said, I had that one moment of weakness, and I shouldn't have had that moment of weakness because I knew better. But I had that one, and so I need to take myself away from the situation, because in a moment of weakness, if I had one, I'm going to have more.
But that doesn't make any sense, because, well, I mean, I get that. Then I don't want to have more. But then kill yourself. He says he's sitting on an island waiting to die. Why are you? If you want someone to pick to die, kill yourself. You don't wait to die for 30 years. Trust me. You don't spend that long suicidal. You kill yourself.
I mean, it hadn't been 30 years. I mean, obviously, Kylo Ren had only been around for
it was still
5-10 years.
His sister's son is still completely and he just leaves. And then when she's asking for help, he's no. And that all that kind of stuff is just because he doesn't want to seem too arrogant.
Yeah. No, never mistake. Like, I hate The Last Jedi. It's awful experience. It's awful for lore. But there are ideas presented that I was like, hey, if you just had a better screenwriter, they could have delivered a gym that would have been believable. Some people would have just been mad because, like, no, it looks like, oh, let me get my friends in Empire, Sure. But it's like, I could buy it. I could buy those points if they did it well, if they fleshed it out, they got more into his head instead of like, let's just, 180 his character and, one moment completely turns him. It's like, I don't buy that. Like, it's people like have like a system that affects who they become, not one moment.
And also, it's jarring within even the sequel trilogy itself doesn't flow.
Yeah,
And that's partially to do with the big bads. Yeah. And so, like, if Luke
we gotta find Luke.
If Luke knew about Palpatine being alive, or that Snoke was, why didn't anyone tell? And that's because the writers didn't know, because this thing was just a jumbled mess. They didn't know. Like, I remember the advertising for Snoke when it first came out. Snoke, watch the rise and fall of the Empire. He's not a Sith. These are things that they released in the like promotional stuff, like when you're reading about these characters and like Supreme Leader Snoke. And then the next one, he's just dead. Like they kill him, and it's like, well, then who am I supposed to be afraid of? And then in the one after that, they're like, it was Palpatine all along. And it's like, why? Oh, because we killed our villain off and we needed a villain and nobody knows who anyone else is. So Palpatine, that was not planned.
Actually, if you look at it, if you honestly look at it, the villain of that entire series was Rey. And I'll tell you why. It all boils
Kathleen Kennedy, but
I was gonna say Disney.
It boils down to it really boils down to the Rise of Skywalker, where she heals the snake and she tells BB-8, she said, "I gave him some of my life. I passed on some of my life to heal him." Fine, that's all well and good. Move forward. She's confronting Palpatine. Palpatine realizes, oh look, I can suck away their life and I can heal myself. I'm doing good, and he does just that. And she rises up, she defeats Palpatine, and she dies doing it. Kylo Ren comes and gives her a little bit of his life so that she will survive. She then kisses him and sucks the rest of his life out of him. She's a Force vampire. And says, I will live forever.
And
I have Kylo Ren.
Then she takes the name Skywalker, having just killed the last of their family line. And now right. Palpatine is out there masquerading as a Skywalker.
She is the villain.
Happy conclusion to the Skywalker saga, everyone. It wasn't that the promotion for episode 9. Hey, you got to get in. You got to see how the Skywalker saga concludes.
It's going to conclude with Palpatine in charge.
The Skywalker saga concluded with episode 6. So there you go. The sequels are a mess. I saw Cameron the other day reposting something that was like, years from now, much like the prequels are beloved, so will the sequels be beloved. And I'm like, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing.
No, we were talking about
different situation.
I was going to bring this up. I didn't realize we were going to get Star Wars so much, but like with you're talking about MCU, and I was saying like, dude, this is because normies. And it's funny because I was just watching the behind the scenes to Arrival, my favorite movie by Denis Villeneuve. He was talking about it. Well, one of the producers was saying like, we don't want to like spoon feed the audience. We like to go in with this film and like, assume like you have a brain watching this, we don't gotta like dumb things down for you. Like that was like one of the things like their writing was like, we don't want to dumb anything down. And that is, I think, the biggest fault of George Lucas was like he went in writing the prequels thinking people are smarter than they are. The average moviegoer to the blockbuster of the summer Star Wars, sure, us deep people will tear it all apart and find all the nuggets and all that, but like the norm, so that's where all the backlash comes from. I think is like at the end of the day, Lucas really thought more of his audience, general audience, than he should have gave him credit for. So that's been the success of Marvel. Is like y'all are retards, and we're going to make movies like this.
That's not going to enjoy it.
Rings with all these powers. Well, it's just wristbands and phew,
and all they do is shoot lasers.
But now, in whatever year this is, the audience wants action. And seats with beverage holders, but mainly action.
Simpsons did it again. But yeah, maybe that's just because I'm one of those smart people you were talking about. But even when I think about the prequels, I know that I love them because I saw them as a kid and because I already loved Star Wars. And I was able to overlook as a child some of the things that some of the older fans probably noticed and didn't like. And I know this for a fact because I've talked to older fans, heard what they didn't like about the movie and things I'm willing to overlook. I don't doubt that sort of thing will happen with like children, perhaps. But even children, if they grow up and they're like, I like Star Wars, I want to learn more about it, which is something that I did. And I started delving into like, what is Star Wars? What made it such a phenomenon? And you learn about Joseph Campbell and you learn about like what how this mythology came together, why it's important that Vader needs Luke to help him take his mask off at the end. Like these big mythological themes that went into this, the same themes that are in like Greek and Roman mythology, the same things that are in a lot of Shakespeare's plays, and a lot of things that are in every Disney movie, because Joseph Campbell, after he had written his books and stuff, this other guy, Christopher Vogler, basically made a memo, and this is the memo that changed Hollywood, but it laid out the hero's journey, and that's basically required for every animated film that Disney ever does. It's the hero's journey. Starts here, goes around the steps. Star Wars is very much that, in a space setting, in an action fantasy setting almost as well. And at the time that it came out, there wasn't anything else that did what Star Wars did as well as Star Wars did, combining that hero's journey with groundbreaking special effects and just going for it. The Disney sequel trilogy didn't break ground with their special effects. Now, they're kind of breaking ground with stuff in The Mandalorian, but as far as the stuff they do, like unlike all of the other Star Wars films, the episodic films, every single one of those was pushing graphical boundaries of the time. And people complain about the prequels and the CGI, and it's like, first of all, it had more practical effects than the originals, and second of all, it broke the ground for things like Lord of the Rings a couple years later to do what they did. Directors have come out and said, we wouldn't have been able to do this without seeing what they did with Jar Jar Binks and realizing this is possible. So hate Jar Jar Binks if you want, but
but Jar Jar Binks came from early '92 when Steven Spielberg released Jurassic Park, because George Lucas went. That's the big story. Is George Lucas went to see Jurassic Park and he saw all the dinosaurs and he said, "Okay, now I can make my sequels." Yeah. And the technology's there. I can make my sequels.
He went forth and actually pursued making this technology better. That's why Lucasfilm, is industrial light and magic. They used techniques in filmmaking, especially with the originals, but to like do things that people had never seen before, and then in the prequels to set the stage for things that were coming up next. The sequels took advantage of industrial light and magic, of Lucasfilm and the great things they do. They didn't push anything forward. They didn't try anything new. They didn't break any new ground. Not graphically. Now it looks better, I think. The sequel trilogy, like special effects, look better than most Marvel movies. So I'm not saying that they're bad, but I'm not saying they didn't try and do something new. It wasn't a risk taking at any point.
Yeah, no, Disney, they got Star Wars and they're like, all right, let's look at like fan consistency. What do people buy the most? What do people like put stickers on their car, yada yada. And so like they're like, well, let's make that so we can churn out IP merchandise for the next 60 years till the copyright goes public domain.
And it didn't actually work out as perfect as they thought. It turned out that people wouldn't just blindly go into things. They will complain. And you can't just blame a vocal minority when, things are getting bombed out of control. And then your Solo movie, which was supposed to just make them bank, doesn't, because people were mad about the movie before. And there were so many problems with that Solo movie. It just went to shit. And then after that, we had the president of Disney at the time put his foot down and say, the buck stops with me. And then all of the projects in development were shelved until they redid their entire plan, taking into effect or trying to take into account the fans, actually. And instead of just writing them off as, we'll just, insult these people. Whoever doesn't like it is just an alt-right or a troll or a vocal minority, or they don't matter, or a racist or a sexist. If you don't like it, you're a bad person. That's what they said. And people just kept being like, well, if that's what you're going to say about me, I'm not going to go see your next movie. And then they're like, okay, wait. We need to bring in the money. So they just kind of quieted down on all of that stuff and said, hey, look at all this new stuff we're doing. Here's the Book of Boba Fett, and here's The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian was a test. And the overwhelmingly positive response that got, because it was being made by people that actually want to make good Star Wars stories. And there's parts of that too that are not, and better overall.
Let's get down to brass tacks. It was a Western in space. Everybody loves a good Western. Who doesn't love a good Clint Eastwood movie? It was a Western set in space, and that's what made it
good.
good.
Characters that fans wanted to know more about. Mandalorian's Boba Fett. I mean, that was originally supposed to be the Boba Fett movie, which was announced way back in the day, along with the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie.
Yep.
But again,
and Yoda too. I think Yoda had
that all got axed, and so they were like, now there's this. The only thing on the slate is this new show called The Mandalorian. That was supposed to be the Boba Fett movie, and that now is turned into the Book of Boba Fett because they decided to introduce Boba Fett in something they knew was working and that they knew a lot of classic fans were enjoying. So they're like, and that's why I was terrified for a while. After The Last Jedi came out and there was all that turmoil, and I saw what they did to Luke, and I didn't like that. And some other like Leia, I was like, oh my God, how many other characters are they? Admiral Akbar just dying. How many other characters are going to get a hold of and just trash? And so I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this Obi-Wan Kenobi movie coming up, and I'm like, oh God, no, because he's my favorite character. I think Boba Fett's my second favorite character. So I'm just sitting there like, oh God, no. And then they put a stop to everything, started The Mandalorian, and now I have some hope again.
The thing with Akbar, I think, was that it's the same voice actor from Return of the Jedi, but he's aged so much.
It's a carp.
The voice was almost unrecognizable, so he wasn't as relatable. I mean, you could look at him and say, "Oh, that looks like Admiral Akbar," but it didn't sound like it. I was
just surprised that why put him in there if you're just gonna kill him all? Why do that? Why?
No, I actually did a video about the Tim Rose thing, and I really think that was a way for him to what has he done that people are like, "Ooh, Tim Rose." It's just Akbar, 2 minutes in Return of the Jedi. He's a character. Sure, he's a legacy character now, but he's not. You don't hang your hat on Star Wars on Akbar. Come on.
They also changed some of his backstory.
It was overblown, I think, for his own 15 minutes of fame again. Honestly,
15 minutes. I'd give him 2.
Because of the whole thing about I'm crying in my suit, and they're like, it's a wrap, and I blah blah blah. It's I seen the footage. It sounds like it looking at it, not knowing the story, be like, oh, it looks like they're having a good time, and then he goes and cries in his room for hours afterwards, being done with Star Wars. It's I really don't think they knew anything about how you felt, so I really think he just spun that all out of proportion. And people really jumped on that just to nag on Rian Johnson.
I just that the character. I know that he talked about that, and I was just like, why did you even have that character then in the film just so you could not have him say anything and just kill him almost off screen? What was the point of that? But I don't know. It seemed like we could have just had him still alive. He could have come back as one of the, he could have had 2 seconds of footage in The Rise of Skywalker, just
helping Rey through the Force.
Yeah. Look at the size of that thing.
I would have loved if they would have had Akbar's voice and when Rey was I am all the Jedi.
It's a trap.
That's a trap.
It's our trap. That's an opportunity for him to at least say something.
Someone should have edited that. That'd be great.
I'll have to do that.
Clip.
It's our trap. That'll be fun. Okay. We've been going for a good long while here, so I'm about ready to wrap it up unless anybody else has anything else they want to bring up, talk about, mention before we call it a day.
Outside of I'm assuming I'm the oldest here, but I'm one of the older fans that loved the prequels. You're not older than me, are you?
Not older than you, but I'm old enough to have seen the original trilogy in the theater.
I'm not.
I'll tell you this, Debbie. Funny story. So my favorite character is Darth Maul. I have 30 Darth Mauls in my house.
Nice.
And what's funny about I can say as a kid I saw all 3 prequels in theaters. What's funny is the first one, my mom's boyfriend at the time, him and his son, he was 12. They were the only movies they had in the house was Titanic and Star Wars trilogy. So they were really excited about Star Wars. I saw I didn't really care about the old Star Wars. It was oh, it's on, but it was just you're talking about the 90s and all this stuff for kids at the time. There was no real flash to Star Wars. It's a pretty drab trilogy. Return of the Jedi is probably the most colorful, but it's very drab looking. It's not going to suck a kid unless you're raised to with the family, like, hey, it's Star Wars time, kid, you know? And so that wasn't me. And so with the prequels coming out, I saw the trailer, I'm like, whoa, that looks awesome. And I was so hyped. We go, I think, opening night to go see Phantom Menace. But it's like, I think the movie started like 9. So by the time I got to the fight, I passed out. I had to wait over a year. I had to wait a year for the VHS to finally see the actual fight.
You got to see all the trade talks, though, and the meetings and the court hearings and proceedings and whatnot.
You know, honestly,
all the exciting stuff.
I mean, yeah, I can remember as a kid, like, rewatching them and, like, you know, kind of slogging through that just because it's not, like, engaging to a kid. You don't really understand what you're hearing. But I still liked the universe, like seeing, like, all the stuff on screen. Like, oh, what's that? You know, there's a story in the world that's, like, bigger than the one you're watching. So that was kind of my experience. But, yeah, it wasn't like it was legitimately just like it was so late I passed out because I'm a little kid. But that's like the funny thing about my Star Wars history is like, yeah, I actually fell asleep premiere waiting for that fight and I never saw it for a whole year.
and actually now that you mention it, because I was not a kid when the prequels came out. I was an older person. I was in my 20s. But, you know, and I think it was your last show, Vase, where you said something along the lines of people went to go see one crummy movie so that they could see it was.
We were talking about the previews.
The preview for episode 1. So this would have been
about Spider-Man. Like, are they holding that trailer to try and get people to go into the movies? Because
the crappy movie was Star Trek Insurrection.
So
the one with F. Murray Abraham. And the only reason I know that is because I went to the theater. I saw Star Trek Insurrection. Somebody, I think my aunt and uncle, I was in Atlanta at the time, and they said, oh, let's go see a movie. And I was like, okay, well, let's go see Star Trek. And they showed the preview, and I literally stood up and said, okay, I really could care less about this movie. And that was the only reason I paid.
Star Trek crap.
And that's an amazing thing. It's also kind of like a statement about how times have changed. I mean, you used to be able to influence the box office by saying that a preview was coming up before a movie, because where else are you going to be able to see it? Nowadays, we're talking about actors suing companies because the at-home release is coming out the same day as, you know, as in the theaters, because that's how much things have changed, and like the immediacy of how media is available as soon as you can, you know.
But you know, I did the same
in Best Buy.
I did the exact same thing with The Force Awakens too, because The Force Awakens released in December of 2015. On Black Friday of 2014, they released the
trailer.
It wasn't a trailer; it was the little teaser or whatever, where it's, you know, there's been an awakening. Have you felt it? And then it shows Finn. But they only showed it. They only showed it at certain theaters around the nation. And one of the theaters that they were showing it at was, I don't know, a good 15, 20 miles from my house. So I took my kid, and we went to go see Big Hero 6 just so we could see the Force Awakens trailer. Which I was like, I don't even know what Big Hero 6 is. I don't care. The movie turned out great. I was like, oh, okay, all right, I'm into this.
Second one, finally. Come on.
Big Hero 7. Then all the prequels will be a lot of fun.
Big Hero 1.
Big Hero 2. Big Hero. Too Big, Too Hero. Okay. Yeah. Is that the end of the story?
Yes, I'm done.
You know, it's funny with that trailer, though, for Force Awakens, the first trailer. My ex-wife, the day before, so it was either the week before or the day before it actually dropped, like Thanksgiving, she's like, hey, it's the new Star Wars trailer. And I've been Googling every day Star Wars news, waiting for like any little tidbit about like the release and stuff, about any insider stuff. And that's how I became a Mike Zero follower for a while, because he was credited. In articles.
We've all been there at the time.
Yeah, but she showed me a video. It's like, it starts out like, you know, a long time ago. And then also Rick Roll. I got Rick rolled. And I wasn't into internet culture at the time, so I didn't know. I'm like, oh. So then she's like, hey, the trailer dropped. I'm like, fuck you. He's like, come on, watch it. I'm like, don't talk to me. And then like, I'm like, okay, yeah, all right, yeah, you're gonna roll me in. And it's like, oh wait, this is actually something.
This is real.
Like, wow. And, yeah, I watched it like 10 times. Like, whoa, man, I cannot wait. Man, the fervor they had me at with Force Awakens, and look at where we are now. It's like, oh yeah, I might watch a Star Wars show, but from movie, I don't know about that. Like,
yeah, it's rough out there. People have no idea like how much or maybe they do because they've actually watched my channel, but like as a hardcore Star Wars fan, like the tumult that we've been through, like I remember, and it started for me with like The Last Jedi. Because I remember going to see The Force Awakens, and I was like, cool. It's Star Wars. We'll see where it goes. And then I remember the next one. And I went to see it with my best friend because we both love Star Wars. And he was about to get married. And he actually, in the theater before the movie started, asked me to be his best man. And I was like, oh, man, this is perfect. Going to see Star Wars, going to be best man, blah, blah, blah. And it was a double feature, Force Awakens, midnight showing into The Last Jedi. And let me tell you, we left that theater. It was the quietest I've ever heard like a theater be when everyone's leaving. No one was talking. And I remember we walked all the way out to our car we parked near each other and we didn't say anything until we got near our car. We kind of looked at each other and I looked up and I was like, I don't think I like that. And that was all I could say that day because I couldn't fathom going to see. And it was only like until I processed everything later and started seeing then the attacks and the different things and being like, oh my God, this is insane. And then, everything just went off the rails. But that's what I said. The first words I said, we got all the way to the parking lot. And I was like, I don't think I like that. Which I didn't understand how that could be possible because the trailer hype and everything before that movie, everybody. Well, there were not a lot of people before that movie came out that were like, "This is gonna suck." That was not the vibe.
That trailer was great for Last Jedi. I still watch it. I'm like, damn, what a good trailer! That really hooked me.
The general consensus was that it was going to be Empire 2. It was going to be Empire 2.0. This was going to be the best one of the trilogy.
There's some people that call it that, which is the craziest thing to me. Like they call that their favorite one out of all the Star Wars, and I'm just like, how can you say that?
I wouldn't go that far.
How you can say that? Cam, I think, is his.
Yeah, I know Cam.
He does movie reviews for GNN. That should be, and everyone has their own opinion. And it was so funny because he did a review of a show. What was it? Okay, Artemis Fowl, which he read the books of, and he was a fan of that. And he does like a rage, and I thought it was hilarious.
It was really amazing.
Funny. If you look at any Cam in Focus, him on Artemis Fowl is hilarious. He does like editing stuff with it that matches his rant. He rants against this. But one of the things that he hated was that they made their main character into a Mary Sue, into like this overwhelmingly over powered character. And I'm just like, how can you be saying this about this? And then tell me that like these are the best movies that have ever been, or like at least last Jedi. That's one of the exact problems with. But it's
it's Cam.
It's all it's everyone. Everyone, you. And also if you like The Last Jedi, that's fine. Okay, it doesn't make you a bad person. Me not liking it doesn't make me a good or a person's opinion on a movie does not make them a good or a bad person.
Here's the thing. There is not
for the most part.
There is not for one thing. There's not a perfect movie. There is not a movie that there is not something wrong with it, and there's not a movie to where you're going to have everybody in the world loves that one movie and nobody hates it. There is that movie doesn't exist. So to go in and say, "Oh, The Last Jedi was so good," yeah, it was good. That there were parts about it that I didn't like.
Yep.
But I could go back to Empire and say Empire was great, but there were parts of it that I didn't like. Phantom Menace was amazing.
No, there's certainly parts of that.
Well, okay, then fine. Go to Revenge of the Sith, the better of the prequel trilogy.
There are parts of that.
Say that was, and it was great. The whole end sequence with the lightsaber and "You Were My Brother, Anakin" and all that other stuff, and I mean tears. But there were parts of that movie that I didn't like. Mm-hmm. So I mean, there's not a perfect movie.
That in the case of those specific examples, like the prequels, at least you had George, and even if he has said like, Why would I keep making movies for people that hate me or complain so much or blah, blah, blah. When the movies came out and people did have complaints, he didn't then say anyone that doesn't like this movie is a bad person. He didn't say if you have a complaint, it's just because you're afraid of strong women or it's because of trolls. He just said, okay, I'll try and do better. And so then in the next movie, people complain about Jar Jar. Jar Jar is still in it. It's not like he just threw him out the window, but he has less of a role and he's less of like a caricature. He's more of an actual character. And then people complain about different stuff in the Clone Wars, which for sure that one has its own, or the Attack of the Clones. Yeah, some of that stuff is just bad, but it's also got some of my favorite stuff. Seismic charges, awesome. You know, there's things
the whole last
trade for the world.
The last 20 minutes of the movie was amazing.
Yeah. And so, but then when people complain, what did he do? He didn't say, well, if you didn't like it, it's because you're stupid or you just didn't get it or blah, blah, blah. He just said, okay, and I'll try and do better next time. And then he just tried to keep making better stuff based on what people were saying. He didn't say, if you don't like it, it's because you're bad or you don't understand me or blah, blah, blah. He just was like trying to take that into his, and with the sequel trilogy, you could almost say the opposite happened. It was
his
like
favorite character now, like still is Jar Jar. Like think about that. He made that character with like, hey, I've helped spearhead all this new technology for filmmaking, and I'm going to put all that into Jar Jar to wow people. And I'm like really in love with this character, even though I made Darth Vader and Boba and Emperor and all these, you know, Han Solo. My favorite's Jar Jar, and people are like, "You're a racist. This is trash. This killed Star Wars. You raped my childhood with this movie." And he's like, okay, let me like take what I love that I made for my kids and scrap it to please you. Like that's who George Lucas is. Like
I think they even said, I think if you watch like the making of they did the big long step by step of here's how we made the Phantom Menace. I think there was one scene where they're looking at like sketches of Jar Jar and Lucas says, and that's the one. He's the key. Jar Jar is the key to all of this. And I'm like, looking back now, it's like, okay, how exactly is he the key? But okay.
And I really do buy into like the Darth Jar Jar thing because
I do too. Yeah,
like they animated all that. Like that was purposeful animation to him with the CGI. With like the whole like, you know, waving his hand and like he's mimicking someone else's dialogue and stuff. Like
if you even his eyes.
Weird. Yeah, it's like that's weird. That was definitely on purpose to go somewhere. I think he was going to do like a flip of Yoda, make him like a dark side Yoda. And it's like, oh, actually, he's like a big cog in Palpatine's, you know, repertoire, whatever. And then like, all right, well, I can't do any of this because everyone freaking hates this character. So
and then he just relegated him to the position of raising
Ambassador
Palpatine to executive emergency powers, getting duped. They're like, okay, we can trade it on this. But yeah, with the animation that they had put into play, gotta wonder about that.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'll always love Jar Jar for the opportunity that he gives Qui-Gon when he's, you know, the ability to speak does not make you intelligent. One of the best gift responses you can use, you know, just
my favorite Jar Jar moment is when he's like, "Pee, you sound."
Oh my!
I still love it. Like it's better.
Oh,
now
with the
that
thing
I'm older.
crapping and the
the camel crabs and like looks back and like, you like that?
Pee,
Like,
you sound. Yeah.
See,
I
and I
get the appeal for like
or
kids.
when he's like talking about Padme, he's like pretty hot. It's like what? Like,
but that also kind of supports the thing is like if you had taken out in the first episode maybe like half of his stuff and placed it a little bit more, then you could have said like, okay, this character is a comic relief, like da 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 da. The way that he was though was like almost overwhelming. It's like every scene has to have Jar Jar being an idiot in it somehow. Oh look, we're working on the pod. He's got his hand stuck and now he's numbed his face. And okay, look, there's a camel took a shit. Oh, he noticed that. All right, he's not going to let that go. Here's
you sound like the pitch meeting guys.
Sitting in a junk shop. Well, he'll touch it and inevitably it'll cause chaos. Just absolute.
Oh, and it kicked him in the groin too. That was a groin shot.
Boom. Who knows if his genitals are even the same place? Let's say yes for the how much funnier that'll be sake. And just so on and so forth. It's like And then in the battle where he's just like, people are dying, Gungans are getting fried all around him, and he's just like, oh,
yeah, where he's like shooting droids with his foot.
Yeah, stop that way. While your eyes are covered, and that's what some people are like. See, he's Darth Jar Jar. He's doing all that with the Force, and it's like,
yeah. As much as you can go through, this is why people hate Jar Jar.
Inspire hate. That's the dark side.
My worst hated thing about Star Wars was Last Jedi is Ewoks. Like I cannot stand Ewoks. So like when they're getting nuked and like the ones like crying, like, "No, Ewok friend, you're dead." I'm just like, "Yes, die."
I'm glad your tripwire plan didn't work. It doesn't make any sense. It's two tiny bears holding a hydraulics that ATSDS.
This will definitely work.
Yeah.
I never.
That was originally supposed to be Wookiees, I think. So that would have been awesome. But again, they didn't have the technology. I think they're like, we can't make a whole forest full of Wookiees. We do have a lot of midgets on hand, though. So
we don't have a lot of tall people, but we got a lot of midgets.
Do what we can, and then in Revenge of the Sith, we'll have
those Munchkins probably had a lot of kids. Follow them up.
Kashyyyk moment. From my time on Willow, I know that.
I never got the hate for Jar Jar because Phantom Menace was so politically heavy. You needed somebody, and he was for the kids. He wasn't for me. He wasn't for whoever else was an adult at that time.
Yeah.
He was for the kids, and that first half, like I said, is so politically boring.
I do not get that. By the way, I know people have had that complaint about all different kinds of things. I was like, it's like almost 10 minutes in one part and maybe like 5 minutes in another part out of the movie that they're actually talking about this. I was like,
I don't know.
To me, it didn't seem that crazy, but
it did to me, and I feel the same way with the Darth Plagueis book. Man, there were some chapters I really had to force myself to read because I was just like, oh my God, get rid of this political crap.
Star Wars fun.
But that's just me. I'm not a political person. I don't
I mean,
care one way or the other.
I never want to talk about real life politics. I do like talking sometimes about how like Star Wars used like bigger general idea of politics, relating back to like the Roman Republic and how that fell and that kind of thing with their imperial senate. Like how A New Hope starts is with the dissolving of the Senate to create, an emperor, the true emperor without the Senate. And that's all very much related to the Romans and like how that fell from the inside and like how, freedom dies to thunderous applause and all that kind of stuff. That makes sense. And I find that interesting. It's when they try and go like, let's do two specific examples of stuff that's absolutely happening now. It's supposed to be something like relatable to the human experience, not like, do you remember yesterday when you were watching the news, this thing that happened? Well, it's in Star Wars now. It's not supposed to be like that direct of a comparison, but
yeah. Going back to the Jar Jar complaint, like the saddest thing, like I haven't gone through it all, but I watched like most of the first disc of the Blu-ray set that came out like right before like the Disney buyout, and there's like behind the scenes of like creating some of the like the creatures and stuff. And I always wanted more of the creatures, especially like in the water in Phantom Menace. And
it's always a bigger fish.
Yeah, the one was the main person that was working on Jar Jar. And it's like that's even sadder than like knowing what like emotional investment Lucas has with Jar Jar. It's seeing this woman like how much fun she had making him, and then knowing like how people feel about him, and it's like, oh man, like this is awful.
And they kind of brought him back in like the Clone Wars stuff that I think might have been partially done because of the initial backlash against Jar Jar, and then like they kind of want to make up, this character. It's not like we don't want to completely just abandon him. just be like, let's pretend that never happened. It's like, no, Jar Jar's still there.
They had enough sprinkling of him within the Clone Wars to where it wasn't unbearable like it was with Episode 1. With Episode 1, like you said, it was every scene's got to have Jar Jar in it. And
sprinkle him out a bit more, and you'll be much more successful with a character like that.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like when you're trying to like wow people with a blockbuster, like, hey, we got a whole new thing thanks to like computers. We can do this guy,
and
like,
that's
hey,
the other side of that coin.
It's like
they were trying to show off what they were doing specifically with his character. So
yeah, apparently Michael Jackson was actually supposed to be cast as Jar Jar, which I was like, that would have been crazy. Michael Jackson in Star Wars.
That's I was gonna do that.
That would have been crazy.
But wait a minute, wasn't NSYNC was supposed to be in Episode 2, weren't they? Was it NSYNC or the Backstreet Boys?
We used to gotta go to Gonga City.
Was it NSYNC?
I think it was.
Yeah.
Did you guys watch the Mandalorian behind the scenes for the final finale, season 2 finale that came out this week?
Not yet.
No, I'm behind on What If and all that, so
that was good.
So,
was it?
we'll
Okay, I'll watch it. The
There's
Disney,
Disney
Gallery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Disney
that sounds
Gallery,
fun.
Disney Plus. Actually, okay, the last thing, I'll actually just put it on as we're closing out here, but I assume everyone's seen the trailer for Star Wars Visions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that? I'll quickly say that I'm a fan of it. I like that type of thing. I liked it when they did it with Halo. They did it with Batman. They did it with The Matrix, the Animatrix, like just a anthology of like 7 or 9 or whatever different episodes of different style of anime of these American, things. So I'm looking forward to it. That's not to say that I'm going to like every single one, but I think the idea is cool, and I would like to see Star Wars anime. So Angus, real quick, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I was talking with someone about this kind of on accident a couple weeks ago that like I might do a video. I want to do some research about it before I do, but I want to do like a scripted in-depth video. But like Star Wars doesn't do well in Asia because like the big crux of Star Wars is based on Eastern philosophy, Buddhism, Taoism, etc. And so like when like this is a wow factor for like Judeo-Christian based America and the West, seeing this kind of perception of good and evil and all that, or really a balance, and so that's why it doesn't work in Asia, because it's like this is just like run-of-the-mill kind of philosophy or story problems, conflicts. So it's like it's nothing special to them. I think normal Star Wars fans, Western Star Wars fans, aren't going to be really wowed by this. Maybe an episode or two, but I think a lot of it's just going to be like whatever. That was a thing in Star Wars that they tried, but I think this is a way for them to try to tap into the Asian market by appealing to them, and it has no real implication, it sounds like, with it being an anthology film where it isn't going to like really touch canon, I guess.
Right.
Or this could become later on. This could become like, hey, Star Wars finally does like multiverse or something where it's like legends happened in a timeline, So this is I think a real testing ground. This is a real, I think, ambitious long term where it could go. I'm not excited, but I will watch it, of course, because it's Star Wars, something new. But that's kind of my feel about it.
There are definitely some familiar locales, such as the.
Oh yeah, okay. It's just Vase that froze. My computer's really slow, so I'm like, oh crap.
No, it's not. It's not you.
Oh no.
Well, I'll just say real quick, I'm not an anime fan. I will watch this because, like Angus said, it's Star Wars, but I'm just not an anime fan.
Honestly, I'm not a big anime fan either. I do watch like the Dragon Ball series. I really liked Star Blazers when I was a kid. I really enjoyed. I don't know if y'all watch this, but anyway, the idea behind this one, I really liked, and I think they said something about it too, about maybe they could go and use this, and then they introduce the legends. Make an anime and do Heir to the Empire and do There he is.
He's back.
No
You know,
worries.
do the Heir to the Empire trilogy, do the Darth Bane trilogy within the anime style, and then that way you appease the fans and say, okay, look, here's your legends, and they're still good, and now we've made movies about them, so lay off.
I think it's
I'm all for that, but not in anime style.
I think it's going to be even farther off than like Legends stuff. It's going to be completely. They were like, all right, you have to make the story in the Star Wars universe, but you're free to like.
It happened.
As we approve of the script, you can use whatever style you want. But you can see some of the crazy stuff they're doing. That one chick with like 6 lightsabers, like Grievous with 4, baha, and then the one guy with the
whip looking thing,
umbrella thing that spins. It's got a, and that's there's a classic. I think it's like a samurai film, maybe even a Kurosawa film, where a guy's using a weapon like that, but it's got blades on the end. So they're tying into these different things. But kind of like Angus said, I do think though that there are a lot of nerds out there that are fans of different things. Like myself, I don't like all anime. I'm not like all over all anime, but I love like Full Metal Alchemist. I know some different things. Like some different animes that I've enjoyed, and so seeing things in that style, I'm down to check it out. But for the if you're just into Star Wars and whatnot, this might be a little bit like I watch the movies. I watch what comes on Disney Plus. If you're not like an anime person, this might. I've actually talked to people already that are like, "What the heck is this? This isn't Star Wars," and I'm like, "It's hilarious." But, yeah, it looks. I think it looks good. It's definitely something I'd be interested in. Again, is every episode gonna thrill every single person? No, but I think there's probably gonna be some really cool stuff in there. If it's anything like, which it seems like it's almost exactly like the Animatrix, Gotham Knight, which was the Batman one, I think, and the one that they did for Halo. I think it was like Halo Infinite. I forget what it was called, but it was just fun watching these different styles of animation portraying a topic that I really enjoy. But we'll see. And the reason that not every episode pleases every person is because that some people are going to try and take it to extremes and do different things that's farther out there. But we've been going for 2 hours now, so we're definitely done. That's it. So I'm going to say thank you very much to my guests. Debbie and David, really appreciate you being here. I'll see you both on MCU Mondays this Monday at 9:30 on Geek News Now and on It's Vase Productions. And Black Angus, keep seeing you on Thursday nights on your channel. You got your Thursday night show. Thank you very much for being here today. It's great to have you on. We're going to try and have you on again soon. And if you get caught up on the MCU, we'd love to have you again on MCU Mondays. But we're talking about the what if stuff now. So
yeah, no, I liked What If episode 2 more as like really kind of showing like what one point later on in the story could really affect the whole story. I thought it was a better story, but I liked the first episode better. Like the first episode was more like emotionally engaging. I think T'Challa sucks as a character. There's a reason his comics don't sell well historically. Like he is a low-key character despite how people today try to sell him because black. I'm a black guy, so I'll be honest. Like that's why he's has any real following, because that's like the one famous black character right now that they can sell. That's his role, unfortunately. And
I mean, in the
character's
MCU,
dead,
yeah.
so yeah. But I thought it was interesting, but like he is not what was interesting about the episode. It's like it really shows like there's not a range to that character. Unless you really drastically change him, then it's not him. So
yeah.
But yeah, I interested to see what episode 3 is. I've watched nothing about it. No spoilers, no non-spoiler, nothing. I'm just totally in the dark. I've seen pictures of Nick Fury. So
that's probably a good way to go into that one. I think you'll enjoy it more if you don't know what's coming.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know anything about Captain Carter, and I really liked it. And I saw the, usual suspects freaking out about like the most minor detail that like,
Mephisto confirmed.
Just to spin, it's like, well, we know what you got to sell on your channel, so of course you're gonna. Yeah. It's a good story, so there's nothing really crap on it. Yeah, like I'm one, like I'll tell you if something's woke if I think it's woke, but like I was totally fine with that episode. Everything made sense. It was fun. So I think they got something good here to kind of fill the void between the movies. And yeah, come see me on Thursdays, 9 p.m. roughly every week, Thursday. And you never know what guests we'll have. Hopefully I'll get Vase on sometime. And maybe a couple of these people or other Geek News Now related personalities.
There's a bunch of people I can I'll put you in touch with people if you need.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'll have to hit you up later, Chris. But yeah, I'm gonna drop out because I have to go watch a movie with someone.
Absolutely, it's 2 hours. And I usually say like an hour is how, but we moved right through it. We kept talking, kept going.
No, this was fun. I'm just stretched for time today, and I just got off work.
We're calling it. I'm calling it now. So thank you everyone for tuning in to the Kerfuffle, and we'll see you next time.
Shit! Language. Wait a second. No one else is going to deal with the fact that Cap just said language? Just slipped out.
Find the scepter.
And for gosh sake, watch your language.
That's not going away anytime soon.
You bet your ass.
Steve, he said a bad language word.
Did you tell everyone about that? The Hero's imprint.
Out with the platinum bastard.
Steve doesn't like that kind of talk.
You know what, Romanov? Fury, you son of a bitch.
Ooh, you kiss your mother with that mouth?